like to call to order the work session for February 24th, 2020. Mayor Lord is not here in attendance tonight, but we do have everyone else. I would like to remind council and everyone that we do have a 6 p.m. Public hearing that we'll need to meet, so we'll just kind of keep that flowing along. And we have one item on the agenda tonight, and that is the, I'm going to say the first update of the Civic Square project, and our city manager, Julie Arundel, and Development Services Director, Christopher Baker, will present. Julie.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's an exciting night. We've reached a milestone with the Civic Square project, which is that we've completed the space planning and form follows function. So we're now been able to unveil to you tonight the potential outside of what the building will look like, which I think everyone's been excited to get to this point. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going through, again, a little bit of the history of the project, introduce some of the important partners, and so we're going to make you wait a little bit until we unveil it. But we have some exciting videos and boards for you and are very much looking forward to an interactive process about what you're about to see. I would also just like to state that I was able to go spend some time with the mayor this afternoon and give her a preview of the preview, as I know it's certainly a legacy project for her, as it is for all of you. So she's already provided some feedback, and I'll share that at another point in time. I don't want to ruin it. So with that, I'd like to introduce and turn it over to Christopher Baker.
Thank you, Julie. I have just a couple of brief remarks I'm going to run through just to put this in context a little bit and refresh the council's memory on how we got to tonight, which is a very momentous occasion. After many years of sitting as vacant, single-use, commercially zoned property, in the winter and spring of 2018, DSD staff was approached and contacted about rezoning a portion of the Globe property on the Australia Falls Regional Center site to allow single-family rentals. During that time, staff began internally brainstorming on the possibilities that the Globe property could be much more, since it has such a great location, is adjacent to the Bullard Wash, and is also, as we all recognize, very much a prime development opportunity. As a result of desiring to look holistically at the entirety of the Globe property, in May 2018, staff presented some very high-level thoughts and research about mixed-use projects and their viability to Globe. This was an effort to help cast a vision, a preliminary vision, and also develop a shared interest of what could be in creating something dynamic. Since we're all here tonight, you obviously can guess that meeting went very well. The original inspiration for Civic Square came from previous work that the city undertook at the City Center at Australia and Yuma, the goals, policies, and aspirations of the 2014 General Plan, and the 2014 ULI study that recommended moving mixed use up to the McDowell Road corridor. In the summer of 2018, DSD and ECDEV staff, economic development staff, worked with an urban design firm that we hired in order to help create the basis of the Civic Square plan that you see today. This plan at that time showed the location of City Hall, strong connections to the Wash, and a centrally located park and open space, all surrounded by mixed-use, higher-density private investment. Globe was excited about the vision and shared the desire to jumpstart a place, a special place, that is a destination for the city. In the winter of 2019, work began in earnest on the zoning and development agreement process. Globe approached these tasks as a true partner to help find the right solutions that benefited both parties. As a result of the Civic Square zoning that is the basis of the entire project that we see tonight, and whose concept started back in March of 2018, was unanimously approved by Council in July of 2019, and then also followed by the development agreement in August. From the outset, your city management team and staff approached this project from a win-win perspective, focusing on what could be. We worked creatively with Globe to implement what has long been discussed in the city and desired by the residents of Goodyear. It is something we can all be proud of and are proud of played a part in bringing to you tonight. Sincere thanks for Globe for sharing our vision and for the passion that they have for Goodyear. Together, we are creating a special place in the city. I would dare say an Instagrammable place that will last for many, many generations to come.
Thanks, Christopher. And is this thing working? I think so. I'm going to be brief. You guys already know me. I was out here about a month ago. So, but we're really excited about what we're about to show you tonight. This has been a long process, but not that long, really, when you take a look at what we're going to present tonight and what we're going to have out here. The process has gone so well and so smoothly, and that's attributable to the staff that you have out here in Goodyear. And I preach that, I think, every time I'm out here, but it's absolutely true. The interest, the collaboration, the interactivity with the staff and their team has been as good as you would ever want. So I think that's why the process has gone really so smoothly. The RFQ process to get this kicked off started through the Title 34, which we went through. There was tremendous interest in this project from the development community. But after the selection committee had narrowed it down to 5 groups, the committee selected Ryan and Butler Design for the design build contract for the City Hall building. The team assembled quickly. They jumped right in, and meetings were held right away. There were meetings and a narrowing of ideas with the staff so that we collectively all came up with what we're about to show you tonight. But before, I would like to introduce, maybe for the first time out here for all of you, is Rich Montig, who's the Director of Construction with Ryan Companies, to talk about Ryan, their firm, and their capabilities, and then they'll introduce the architect, Jeff Cutbirth with Butler.
Thanks, George. So I'm Rich Montague with Ryan Companies. I'm one of our directors of construction. We're excited to be here today to be part of this integrated team with the City of Goodyear and Globe and creating this iconic place that we'll have today. Ryan is an 80-year-old company that's a national development and construction company that plays major projects across the country. For the past 25 years, we've been building iconic projects throughout the project. You guys would know that Marina Heights State Farm or the FBI regional headquarters are some of our major projects. We've been working with the Butler team for the past 25 years as an integrated design build team. And today we're really excited about this opportunity. So some of the key dates that we'll be achieving here throughout the next year, we'll be completing our design. Our groundbreaking will occur in April of 2021. We'll have a 75th anniversary in the park for November of 21, opening the park, and then the project completion will occur in the summer of 2022. Today, I want to show you the first video that gives you an overview of the Civic Square. So the imagery you're going to see today is still concept in nature, but it's going to create a roadmap for our further design development as we progress throughout the year. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff Cutbirth, the principal at Butler Design Group.
Good evening. I'm Jeff. Got it. Thank you. Yeah, good evening. I'm Jeff Cutbirth with Butler Design Group, principal. We've been around for about 25 years now. I think we're on about project 35, 36, something like that with the city of Goodyear. We love working out here, have for a number of years. We're excited tonight to be here to share what I would say is your vision. This isn't our vision, this is your vision. We're the tool that's going to get you there. But we know this has been a long time coming for you, and we're just really honored to be part of what such a historical project and a historical event for the city. It was last summer, I guess, late last summer, that we interviewed with the city, for this project. And I remember, specifically at that meeting talking to everybody that was at the table from the city. And I said, if we're selected along with Ryan, you are all going to be part of our design team. And believe me, they have been. The work that you're going to see tonight has got everybody's handprints all over it, a lot of voices in there. I would tell you, we've got to know the people that we've been working with, and I think that's always, the most fun of all these kind of projects is just to get to know the personalities and the people, that go along with it. So we've had a good time, and we're really excited to kind of share some of our initial, ideas tonight. When we started the project, Christopher challenged us to explore design vocabulary he referred to as classically contemporary. So if you look at those two words, can you take over? So if you look at those two words, we went straight to Webster and looked at what does classically mean and what does contemporary mean. And it doesn't take much to understand that those two words are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So bottom line, we knew we were somewhere in between that. But we had a lot of fun exploring what that was. You want to hit the next one? So we came initially, we literally generated 6 different design alternatives, for what this building might look like. We put all 6 up, we presented them, and then we made everybody get out of their chairs. We gave them a whole pad of green dots and red dots and fat red markers, and we challenged them to go and start drawing on our drawings, and believe me, they did not hesitate. I think everybody had a great time. We had a lot of interaction, a lot of great discussions. So out of these 6, we basically narrowed it down into 2 directions. After those 2 directions, we came back and presented both, and we really hit a crossroads at that point. They liked both schemes. We went around the room, Julie, and voted, and I think we were dead even, half like one and half like the other. So here we are on this scale of classically contemporary, and classical on one side, contemporary on the other. But after a lot of discussion, the weight kind of went over a little bit to the contemporary side. And the thought behind that was this was really a unique opportunity to do something really special, that sent a message about not only the history and the pride in Goodyear from the past, but really looking forward, as we say, to the next 75 years. So what we did is we basically collected all those things about the more classical scheme that really resonated with people, that they were really passionate about. And we said, we're going to figure out how to combine that into this more contemporary scheme. So we went back to the drawing board and we came back, literally just a couple weeks ago and presented what you're going to see tonight in an earlier form. And I think we had basically universal acceptance, around the table, and everybody's really excited about the direction. So again, I would tell you, it's this back and forth process. We went through this several times with the group. So it's truly, been an exercise, of 24 people, that have been, combined, into the design you're going to look at tonight. So let's take a look. We've got a little second animation we'll go through. We'll kind of start and stop. It's just about 2.5 minutes long. Let's just hold there for a second because I want to go through a couple things. It's about 2.5 minutes long. So after we go through it, we have the ability to go then live into this model, and we can kind of go anywhere you want to go. So if you said, let's take a look at what it feels like to go up the front steps, to walk through the breezeway, what does it feel like if we're up on that balcony looking down over the square? So we can kind of just answer any questions you have. We want to show you as much as you'd like to see tonight. I would tell you we're still in the early stages of design. It's always a little misleading when you see renderings and stuff that look this finished, but we're about halfway into schematic design. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I think what we're going to show you tonight is definitely the look, that this group has settled on, and obviously we're excited to get your feedback on it. George?
Just orientate where the office building, parking garage, and all that is.
Yeah, so we're going to go through. So what you're looking at here, this is kind of the bird's eye view. This is hovering over 150th Drive right there. So this is the main entry down the axes, looking at the City Hall, in the distance. We haven't shown anything on the city park at this point. We understand how important that is. We've got meetings this week that start the formal programming on the park, and then we get into the design on that. So we'll be excited to come back and share thoughts on the park. So right now it's shown as a big generic green 2-acre lawn, just basically as a placeholder. So, believe me, there's some exciting things that'll happen in the park. So to the right, is the Phase 1 Globe office building. So if you look at the office building there, that's a 3-story, 100,000 square foot, office building. Behind that is the Phase 1 parking garage. It's going to house about 1,100 cars. That'll serve both the office development as well as City Hall and have some additional capacity to take care of some additional adjacent buildings when they develop. On the south side, of the park, is a second building that would be part of a future phase, but it's anticipated to basically somewhat mimic what we're doing in Phase 1 to really kind of create, the Civic Square that you see. There's a couple white buildings in front, could be retail, could be office. It'll be based upon demand, but certainly hoping that we get some nice retail, and you'll see the courtyard type buildings we've created there. And the whole idea is we basically surrounded, the entire, Civic Square Park, with buildings. We really want to energize the sidewalks and really make this a people place. If we look at City Hall, I'll give you a quick tour just, there. So on the right-hand side, which is north, the lower 2 floors there are the library. So that whole area, the 2 floors there is a library. On the left side, which is south, the first floor is where you enter into City Hall. That's where the council chambers and the pre-function spaces are. Right above that is the one-stop shop. And then above that, on levels 3 and 4, are the rest of the general city offices. And on the top floor is where the mayor's city council offices are. You'll see a balcony up there right at the middle that we'll take a little closer look at. That'd be a great space if you're pursuing a big tenant that's looking to come to the city of Goodyear. It's a great place to flip the switch when you're turning on the holiday Christmas tree. It should just be a great outdoor gathering space to look down over the park. In the middle zone, on the upper floors, is kind of where all the community spaces are. There's conference rooms, meeting rooms, all of those would happen in the middle. And on the first floor where that hole is, there's a breezeway that basically passes through, the first floor. So what this does is provides a direct connection of the park, the formal park, to the Bullard Wash. And so it makes it very accessible to people not only from the city park to go to the wash and experience that, but those that are on the wash can feel like they can come through and be part of what's going on, in the civic park. So let's go ahead and start, and we'll kind of spin you around and take one tour around, and then I say when we get it at the end, we can just go back and look at whatever you want to take a look at. So we're going to start to rotate, around. So again, we kind of coming in, and we'll stay up high for, the initial phase here. You start to see the future office building on the left, the city park. Mayor, we miss you tonight, but we've got the clock tower right there, and we all agree that that's the right place for it. So we're really excited to start to explore the design of the clock tower. As we start to hover over the top and start to come around, the corner, if you want to pause right there, Jagger, we'll pause for a second and take a look. So this is looking at the north side of the, of the facade. This is basically the formal entrance into the library. We'll have an entrance off of the breezeway as well, but we've got a 100-car parking lot, up there on the north side. And this is going to be great for the families. We'll have a, drive-through, drop-off for a book drop. But this is basically where the entry into the, to the library will be. One of the things you'll notice here is how the building starts to step back on the top 2 floors. Programmatically, there was a lot more demand for space. Yeah, that's a great shot there, Jagger. There's a lot more demand for space on the first and second level, so those 2 levels are larger. And so part of what we ended up doing, you can go ahead and go around now. So we pushed the mass of the building to the front because we knew we wanted the building to be large, from the front side, but from the west side next to the Bullard Wash, we felt like it would actually be nice if the building scaled down to a little bit more of a personal scale. It's also got a slightly different character. It's certainly more informal, because you basically have the informal wash on this side, the formal park on the other side, and so basically the building kind of responds to the context where it's facing. So as we go ahead and go through, here, so we'll swing around, from, this shot, which is basically on the path looking south. Now we'll swing out through the wash, and we'll basically end up out in the amphitheater. The amphitheaters exist now, so you can look back across the amphitheater, and you can imagine this would be a great backdrop, for events, that would happen, over in the amphitheater. So this would be your backdrop of the, the Civic Hall. You'll notice there's, employee, spaces. So we've got breakout spaces, on all levels that staff can go out, enjoy outdoor spaces. They'll have great views out over the wash, the distant, White Tank Mountains. And then the pitched roof and the overhang will provide some really needed shade, for that whole west side of the building. So again, it just makes a lot of sense from an orientation. We start to work around here. That's your council chambers and stuff on the lower floor. So now we're on the main drive that we've come up from McDowell. So you'd be on this main drive, going to the north, going in front, of City Hall. Now we're just going to kind of back up and we're going to go down the sidewalk. So to the left would be a future phase of the office building. To the right is the Globe, and then you see City Hall and the view from across the park. So that gives you a feel of kind of the overall sense that you'd get, if you were at the other end of the park. And then finally, we'll just kind of zoom up through the middle. And again, we're excited to get into the park and start designing something other than just the big football field out there. But as you kind of come up through the middle there, you can really see the breezeway. You see the balcony up on the 4th floor. You see the Goodyear sign, the City Hall. And if we just freeze right there, this is basically, the feel you'll get, as you're right out in front of the building, looking up at City Hall. So with that, like I say, there's kind of an overview. We have a ability now, we can kind of go into more of a, a live, mode with the, the model, and we can kind of curse you around and take you wherever you want to go. Glad to answer any specific questions and stuff that you have at this point. I'm just looking forward to your comments. Yeah.
I'm going to do the scan of the group, make sure that there's no last, and then I'll turn it to council. Like, seriously, nobody? Good, Brandon.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it looks really modern and contemporary. I like the breezeway going through, that it flows right over into the Bullard Wash. I like that. And I like all the balcony spaces for people. I really like that it says Goodyear on the side. I think that's a nice touch too. I don't know if that'll be final or not, but I like that. Clock tower, I like, that's pretty neat as well. And I do like the back end, the shade cover, and yeah, from the original one, I like zooming in. It looks better than when it did the farther out version of it. So I like all the details and the extra architectural accents to it. So I think it looks good. I'm trying to think of any negatives or anything I can really think of, but I like it. So
yeah, thank you. One of the things we talked about with the the Goodyear, there we want to explore that shaft, to be backlit.
Yeah,
It'd be
that'd
LED
be nice.
lit. So what you're really seeing there is something fairly, subtle, to where it might be, a frosted glass with some clear glass where the letters are. With LED lighting, we could change the color in there based upon, seasons, events, things that are going on. But I think it has a chance to be a real iconic piece, a real iconic tower for the city of Goodyear. So
Yeah.
we felt like it's something to be proud of as far as your name.
Is the roof going to be utilized too? Can we be
Excuse
on?
me?
Can we be on the roof? Is the roof can be utilized? I know at one point we were talking about potentially, huh? For signage. Or in general to be on. I don't know why we'd be on top of it, but who knows? We might want to be on top of it.
As far as observation, you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah. Or other things up on the roof.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we're focused. Jagger, why don't you go ahead and go on up at the balcony there? So, again, this is early on in this model. As we continue to develop the design, we'll ultimately be able to kind of take you wherever you want to go, even inside the building. But this is kind of cool. It gives you an idea of, if you were up on that outdoor balcony and looking out over the Civic Square. So ultimately, we'll be able to build in all the background that you see from this shot. But again, whether you're pursuing a large tenant that's looking at moving to the city, whether it's other social events, but I think just that view to look down over the city square and really just kind of feel like I think we've designed it right now to accommodate up to 50 people for an event out there.
Okay.
So I think based upon that, we didn't feel like it was necessary to go up on top of the roof. Because once you do that, you're into elevators, restrooms, all those things up on the top
Yeah,
of the roof.
yeah.
And it just adds a considerable expense.
I was just curious. Yeah, I do like the idea of the backlit. Yeah, the more, I don't know, architectural accents that, it looks really nice right now, but yeah, any extra things like that. I can't think of what else I'd want, but I like the idea of the backlit Goodyear.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, that's just an idea we're just starting to explore.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Sherry?
Great job. Thank you all for your hard work. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I know we're still at the early stages. It's going to take some tweaking, and you guys are going to continue to work at it. But I'm very, very impressed. I do like all the balconies. It's really an open space and it flows really nice. And I can see what you mean by the classical and contemporary with the kind of the columns in the front. So I really do like it. Could we see what it looks like going up the stairs?
Sure.
With your little,
Yeah, you hit on a point that I think is very good. I mean, so the classical and the contemporary kind of collide to where I think there's a lot of classical elements used kind of in a contemporary vocabulary. So as we go in a little closer, so that's a nice soft curve. Let's stop back a little bit. So it's a nice soft curved canopy that goes all the way across the front of the building, and we're looking at, like a laser cut, metal screen, that's in there to create kind of a cool, leafy, natural, pattern versus something that's more rigid. I think just the shadows that that'll create, just on the pavement as well as the building, I think it'll just make it a really, really interesting space. But that gives you an idea. We can go ahead and walk up into the breezeway a little bit there, Jagger. So again, we haven't developed any design in there, but there's some good height in there. We actually stepped the second floor back, so there'll be a high volume. So I think part of it is how do you go from such a grand space like the park and kind of transition into this breezeway, as you would move through it. And again, it'd just be, nice to think that you cut through there and basically end up out at, the Bullard Wash, park. So
Very
again, I think these could be really good people spaces once we start designing it. Like I say, we're just now this week starting to get into the design of all the exterior spaces.
very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you bring it back from the top looking out over the park?
You bet.
Yeah, that's good enough right there. Oops. Right there.
Right.
I think when it comes time to designing a park, we want it flexible enough so that events, I kind of envision on your right and left side, you could have food vendors and a variety of other things. At the park itself, when we have our Fall Fest, we have something that we just had this year with the park department where we had, what was it, the summer camp type of thing?
Camp Go Back.
Camp Go Back. And I even, to be honest, would love to see maybe ability to put maybe a little music fest in there as well, in that facility. When we talked about a gathering place, I see more than, and again, I understand this is just an opening space, but flexible enough that you don't have a whole lot of things in it, so that makes more obstructive view if you wanted to pull some of those festivals in that area, because that's a nice that's a nice area to have a festival on, because you've got area on both sides to put the food. You've got the parking with the garage. There's a lot of things that you can put on that space there to bring people. It was interesting. It was, maybe it was a couple of years ago, what Glendale did with its football stadium. Have you ever been to any of their events in front of that football stadium? It's all grass. They've cordoned that off, and they had some barbecue cook-offs. They had live music bands set up on there. And you talk about a gathering place, it drew a lot of people in there. If any of you ever been to any of those events they had there in front, other than the football games where they're just tossing stuff around. So, I kind of can see the potential with that space there in front of City Hall, with that backdrop. So just kind of keep that in mind when you get into designing a park, that you don't make it so limited or whatever that it makes
Right.
it more difficult to put those type of things in.
That it's not flexible.
Yeah.
One thing that's nice, the way that this city square is set up as well too, is both those two side streets that you see, with the angle parking, those can be closed off at the end. We've still
Right.
got circulation around. So, that whole area defined by all those buildings basically becomes, one big open plaza when you have big events. So I think, you're hitting on the point of usable space in the park.
Right.
So I think the whole idea is how do you create that flexibility? So those are all things that have been discussed. So we're, excited to kind of get into to this deeper, this week.
Yeah, I could see a lot of potential
Yeah.
when this thing goes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Jagger, why don't you go real quick and jump over on the balcony of the office building? So again, I think it's, it's good to understand. So I think one of the things that, we're working with Globe at the same time, for their office space. And so, part of what's important is to think about, how the office buildings interact, with the city hall. So one of the things you can see is, we're not here to talk about the office buildings tonight, but, they're very neutral in terms of, their faces to the park. We've maximized the glass. That's going to be very desirable lease space. And then the outside edges, are more solid. They have more of an urban grid, to the elevations. But part of the reason we want to do that too is so that the facades that face into the park are relatively neutral yet elegant, and it puts all the focus on the city hall. You know, so I think that's one of the things, we did not want the office buildings to compete with City Hall, so there'll be no question what the most prominent building is. The other thing, when we approached the steps, so if you go back down to the jump off there you go. But one of the things we've looked at exploring is right now it's, you know, the City Hall is sitting up on a plinth or a pedestal of about 3 feet high. So the formal steps, you know, going up to City Hall just feels right. Not only increases the prominence, you know, of the building, but it gives it more of that civic feel. Simple ramp right off to the side will accommodate, you know, everybody very easily. But I think it's just a really nice feel to kind of walk up to it and have the, you know, steps of City Hall. So again, some of those traditional values that we heard everybody express from the traditional side of classical, you know, we wanted to make sure we incorporated a lot of those elements into the design.
Great. Wally?
Okay, thank you. I've got a lot of questions. Have you ever built a city hall?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that answers a lot of my questions. Then I'm not going to ask some of these others. Okay, why is the Globe building only a 3-story building? Did we limit the height of that? I thought this was going to be a Class A office building similar to what we're building. But if I heard you right, the City Hall is going to be 6 stories and the office buildings will be 3.
City Hall is 4 stories.
Only 4.
Correct. And so I think part of the reason was, you know, the Globe office building at 100,000 feet, you know, 3 floors is a good plate size for the market. And we truly wanted to make sure, you know, that the City Hall felt substantially taller, you know, than, you know, the buildings that flank it. So I think that was the thought. I mean, basically the PAD says that the buildings have to be, you know, a minimum of 3 stories.
And Globe wants to build it will build a Class A office building, so it will be Class A.
Well, I just want, I'd love to have a Fortune 500 company come make their headquarters like State Farm, but I don't think they'll do it in a 3-story building. That's what I was worried about.
There's lots of other space where we can build more buildings.
Good. Yeah,
And-
this is our
and
one
accommodate
shot at
that.
really putting the footprint down of what we want, I think.
Yeah. And I think on the master plan, when you look at the overall master plan, the big site that we're kind of holding out is up in the northeast corner, of this site, northwest corner of the site, adjacent to the wash.
Closer to Pebble
up
Creek
along Monte Vista.
Parkway. Yeah.
So there's a big chunk up there that, you know, with the plating that we're doing right now, it kind of maintains that, and that's what we've kind of had in mind, is to hold that piece off, and that would be a campus-type user versus these buildings that are kind of in tight and that more urban feel. Those garages are kind of pulled in because they're going to service the city hall, but they'll also help the retail that's there at night. You know, the best thing you can do with a parking garage is figure out how to share those cars, you know, with daytime uses and nighttime uses to where you make the, you know, the most out of the parking structure.
Okay. Are all the office buildings that will be built similar to what our city hall is going to look like? Is it all going to have that industrial feel?
No, I mean, I think the character is intended to blend. In other words, we're not trying to copy, you know, City Hall.
So
I
they'll
think-
be individual and it'll,
Yeah, no, I think it needs to,
other.
absolutely.
okay, because
Yeah.
if this one is the first one up, the others will be forthcoming, so.
Yeah.
I just wondered, okay, why a clock tower? Where did that come from?
The clock tower?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's always been a discussion, you know, as part of the, you know, the programming, that the clock tower needed to be incorporated somewhere, whether it's on the building, whether it's out in the park. And we had a lot of discussions, and frankly, some of the options that we looked at, it was one of those classical elements. So if I look back to all of the elements that, you know, the city had researched in city halls around the country, the clock tower, you know, was basically a common element. So I think just the thought that that was one of the things.
That
yeah.
must have come from staff, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's been there from the start. Yes.
okay, that's fine. I just wonder where it came from because I've seen other city halls that do not have a clock tower and they have a beautiful piece of art that really makes a statement more so than a clock tower would, but that's just my personal
More
opinion.
work, just so you know, we're working with the city too. Art will be incorporated in the park and the
Well, I'm
building.
sure it will, but
Yeah.
that's going to be a focal point. That's
Yeah.
going to be something that Goodyear has never had before, so.
Yeah.
I just wondered where it came from because I know we hadn't talked about it.
Okay.
Your groups that you got together to design this building, were they all staff? Is that who your focus groups were?
Correct.
Okay, good. And then my last question is to go along with Councilmember Pizzillo for the acre park that's out front. I just want to be sure that we keep in mind that if we do host events there, we're going to need the ability for whoever we bring in to get in there on those sidewalks, whether they're food trucks or music trucks or whatever it is. So we may need to, it's not we may need to. If we're going to do that, we need to keep that in mind and design it appropriately with plenty of electrical outlets so that we can do it at either end of the park if we wish, or we can have two separate events, because that's a big deal. We've had that happen at some of the venues that we've used with city events, and we've realized that we needed to plan a little bit better.
Thank you.
And I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Laura?
Well, first off, I want to thank you for your enthusiasm for the project, that you recognize that it's historical, unique, iconic, and really appreciate the staff involvement, because certainly there not only does it have to be beautiful, but it has to be functional. And when you first showed it, it looked flat to me until we went around the corners, and then you could really, the architectural interest really started to pop out. And there's a lot to see there, and you don't catch it at the first glimpse, but as you go around, it definitely shows up. There's aspects of it that remind me somewhat of Phoenix City Hall, and they have a couple of pieces on there that's sort of that iconic art with the crown at the top of it, as well as the sun and some other things. So you did mention art. I think it will need a little further artistic touch to it. I really like the balcony, the inclusion of open space or outdoor space into the office. Hard to tell how big that is. I don't know. Can you host an event out there? I mean,
And we'll do furniture studies, et cetera, out there. I'm sure there'll be some fixed furniture, some that'll be, flexible depending upon if it's a standing room only. But right now, the general challenge has been host an event of up to 50 people. And you got to remember what's right inside of that too, because there'll be sliding doors that'll open up. There's additional meeting space inside, so it could definitely be a inside-outside event.
Wonderful.
Where the capacity could, expand.
I wanted to say I want to thank whoever had the foresight to build the Bullard washout, because, it is just such a perfect integration into this project. That's been our best kept secret for a long time, and now it's really going to come to the forefront. So I like hearing that everything's been running so smoothly in the partnership. Again, thank you for your enthusiasm for it. I think you did hit the classical contemporary, which is not that easy to do, but I think the more we see it, the more we're going to see things that really catch our eye on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else, again, before I bring that to a close and turn it back over to Julie? I was talking to somebody at City Hall this morning, and we were talking about the current City Hall, which I've said before, but was the interim office building in 2001, and we were only going to be there for a few years until the City Hall got built. And by the time we finish this project, it will be 20 years as an interim office building. But I think given what we've come to will have been well worth the wait. So the enthusiasm and the way that we've approached this has really been very exciting. I've been I was excited by the mixed materials. There's metal and glass and stone, and I think that's a really good testament to what our community is being built around. We've got a lot of different colors, and I was glad to see the red or the Sedona-looking brick, I think, in the office building, and there's a few elements here in the City Hall building that we get away from the browns, and then the gray and the white. So getting those different colors in there is very, very exciting. The office buildings appear to be a really good complement, so you can see the subtlety to them being downplayed, but the prominence of them in that center. And as I was thinking about tonight's presentation and whatnot, I've worked with a consultant who's got 40 years of local government experience. And I've worked with Steve for the last 10 years, and he has always made the observation about communities that don't have a downtown or a gathering place, they seem to get kind of generally lost as it relates to being a community. There's always something missing about there not being that downtown or a place that people can come to. And we've really been able to rally and maximize the use of the ballpark to fulfill that need for us. But to have this now coming into the future and really moving us forward into this next century and really modernizing Goodyear is just very, very exciting. So thank you from, obviously my behalf, but for the team, that's been great work. So I'll turn it back over to the city manager, and she'll share the mayor's comments, and we'll even end this thing on time.
Thank you. Yes, I, under the circumstances, had the opportunity to visit the mayor at her home this afternoon and preview the presentation, and she may even be watching us, I think, Facebook Live tonight. She was very excited about the project, remains very excited about the project. The clock tower, to speak to that directly, has been something that the mayor has talked about since the beginning of the project, more in passing. Whether or not we, embrace the clock tower, it clearly is not on the building, but as we bring back the park design, if that's something I'd be interested in additional comments, again, looking at iconic city halls. We as a team Googled and Google Earthed and pulled up every city hall I think that we could find, either from our travels. I was visiting my son in Florida and taking pictures of buildings and sending them to the team. It's truly been a group effort to land to this place, but again, really interested and appreciate the comments about the mix of uses and how to warm the building up, perhaps. And so we appreciate all of that feedback. The library design I wanted to mention in particular has been much more of a public involved process. As we're designing the inside of that space. I know that one of our top priorities in this project is to deliver on budget, on schedule. And so using the more internally driven process to get to this point with the design build has been part of that, making sure that we can deliver the project on time. The next steps will be to design the more public outdoor areas, the civic park, and we'll be bringing that back to council for your review. And to your point, Councilmember Pizzillo, making sure that we can continue to program that space needs to be balanced with wanting that space to look pretty all the time. And so those are the initial conversations we're having about how many people can be there, closing off the roads, making sure that we have the access and the electricity to have music and to have the food trucks and to have it be that gathering place that I think we've all been envisioning. So with that, unless there's any other comments, we do have the boards out with some still pictures if anyone wanted to spend a little bit more time looking up close and personal. If you have any other feedback you wanted to provide to me after you've slept on it and continue to look at them, please, we invite all of those comments. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, that's we were just up there touring, but yeah, go on up to the top one real quick, Jair.
This is looking west.
Yeah.
Bullard Wash. So we incorporated some balconies up there as well, so that depending upon number of people or meeting space or whatever the case may be, you can have larger functions, smaller functions.
Yeah.
You can provide flexibility between morning and afternoon if you want to be in the sun, you don't want to be in the sun, winter, summer, whatever the case may be.
Again, I mean, you'll have great views out to the white tanks, to the north, west. I mean, it's going to really, I think, hopefully this time of year, I think you'll use the outdoor spaces a lot. Yeah.
So let me do this. I will, we'll save all obviously the information items for the regular meeting. We'll adjourn this and then be able to answer specific questions if you want to talk. You guys leave this up for as long as we can while the room's being done. Is that physically possible?
Sure.
And, yeah.
We'll stay.
And then if you don't mind staying for the next 15 minutes, we'll get a chance to transition the room and be ready to go. So with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the work session and start the next meeting at 6.